StarCraft and Age of Empires are masterpiece games that have created a stigma around the RTS genre, and it's hard to overcome. These games are notorious for high actions per minute, minute strategy, and an overwhelmingly high barrier of entry. Sometimes it takes a completely different perspective on the genre to rethink what it is and what it could be. I've recently played two idle games, Norp Apolog and Tower Wizard. These games use an aggressive prestige system that turns these idle games into a fresh perspective on the real-time strategy game genre. Now, I'll preface this by saying that I don't really get idle games. Normally when there's no ending and that kind of AFK waiting around is kind of boring, but these games have really changed my perspective on it. The prestige system is this incentive system to restart a run with new powers that change your gameplay completely. And you upgrade and get these powers the more you play the game, and the farther along you get in your, let's say, resource generation. And whenever you restart, it's like getting a head start every time you initiate the prestige. Now, I've played two games like this with this feature, both Tower Wizard and Norp Apolog, and despite not really liking the idle genre, I've loved both of them. It's made restarting a lot of fun. And why are they real-time games? They work off of real-time elements, such as those kind of AFK idle games where you're generating resources over a period of time, and you can just go off it. You can just beat the game by just waiting around for the game to eventually, I don't want to say beat itself, but by slowly generating those resources. Now, why are they strategy games? Well, every time you do a restart, you need to reevaluate your strategy after every run to accomplish your goal faster, and that goal will change at every single stage. In Tower Wizard, they introduce different barriers that you have to overcome, and it focuses a lot more on how fast you're generating resources and how quickly you're able to power up your machine, essentially, your Rube Goldberg machine. And it's almost like idle games are about your distance or your location. These games are more about your velocity and your acceleration. And it even goes so far as to say your jerk, which is how fast you're accelerating. And every time you do a restart, you get new powers that give you more tools to reevaluate your strategy. Every single run you have, you'll learn something as to how powerful this build of my tower can be. And is there a different way that I can generate resources? Is there a different tech tree I can go down that requires you to reevaluate your strategy and put points in your powers that line up with that strategy, and then you can essentially, you're testing out your build. And the game puts these challenges for you to overcome. It's the game pushing back against you in the same way in StarCraft, you know, you have enemies that are coming to attack your base. You need to be able to defend yourself as well as push out past the enemies and overtake their base. This game incentivizes you thinking about the game in a different way and reevaluating your strategy. How can I generate more resources at an exponential rate? How do I generate more damage against the wall at an exponential rate? And these prestige powers incentivize you to try different strategies, synergies, and builds, which is very much like any strategy game. Now, what is this different than a real-time strategy game like StarCraft 2 or Age of Mythology? Well, it doesn't look like a traditional RTS game. It doesn't have that top-down view. You're not managing tiny units. Everything is kind of automated. It's as if you create a worker and the worker just goes. You don't have to tell the worker what to do. And since this is a single-player game, that kind of razor-thin balance that these PvP RTS games that are typically well-known in the genre, it doesn't require those razor-thin margins. It's more about, can you come up with a way to have multiplicative scaling and overcoming the challenge that the game presents you with the tools that it presents you. I would also say that the RTS genre has been notorious for being extremely challenging, multitasking, resource management games. Norp Apolog and Tower Wizard, I never felt like, man, I really have to be pushing my buttons even faster than I already am. I'm sure if I was speedrunning, I would have that feeling, but for the most part, I am just putting points in the way that I think makes sense. I started to have a build order after doing enough runs, and I really enjoyed the kind of planning and payoff that RTS games have that this game allowed me to have, where I would say, okay, I'm going a shaman build, and I would build my characters around having a bunch of shamans. That was a really satisfying outcome and a satisfying gameplay where I made a plan and I saw how it paid off, and I had to reevaluate later on to say, okay, maybe I need to go a different route. Maybe I need to try the Dragon's Fire Breath or something along those lines. I didn't need any kind of like high APM to be able to just come up with a strategy and see how it played out. Overall, I would definitely recommend Tower Wizard and Norp Apolog. I really like that these games had a definitive ending and didn't just go on forever or take hundreds of hours of AFK time on my computer to finish. I really enjoyed that while setting things up, while I was waiting for the next power to come out, if I wanted to, I could leave the game running. I could go and do some chores and come back, and I could see if I can get my next prestige point. And each of those prestige points were really nice checkpoints to be like, okay, if it took me 15 minutes to get here, it's probably time for me to restart and try again with a new build. And overall, I really like the fact that you have the opportunity to either be actively playing, or you're taking an action every few seconds, or maybe every minute, or you can take a lot of actions, set up your machine, and then walk away. And I would definitely recommend trying out Tower Wizard and Norp and giving it a go and trying to aggressively prestige, because I think that those games are just give a really satisfying real-time strategy experience. And I really hope to see more games like this in the future.